This really is a battle over press freedom, over the rule of law, over the future, I would say even of democracy, because democracy, which means that the people control governmental power, this cannot exist with secrecy. Yeah? You deprive the public of their right to know, and you deprive them of the tools to control the government. This really is a battle over press freedom, over the rule of law, over the future, I would say even of democracy, because democracy, which means that the people control governmental power, this cannot exist with secrecy. Yeah? You deprive the public of their right to know, and you deprive them of the tools to control the government.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Our exclusive interview with Jullian Assange. He's standing by from his safe room at the Ecuadorian Embassy in London. First, our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has more on Assange and the assistance WikiLeaks is providing to NSA leaker Edward Snowden. Good morning, Pierre.
Good morning, George. WikiLeaks officials were with Snowden when he fled from Hong Kong to Russia, and they have provided him with legal guidance. Assange is said to be pressing Ecuadorian officials to grant Snowden's request for asylum. Some say it's the latest provocation of the U.S.
He has long been a prickly thorn in the side of the U.S. government. But who is Jullian Assange? Hacker, activist, a journalist, or fugitive criminal?
We've exposed the world's secrets.
He is the mastermind behind WikiLeaks, which has published the secrets of nations and is now at the heart of a global debate over the public's right to know.
The WikiLeaks organization published hundreds more internal government documents.
Assange has embarrassed the powerful and revealed top-secret information about U.S. and other government activities.
A bunch of bodies laying there.
But at what cost?
It puts people's lives in danger, threatens our national security.
Now the man who has been on a crusade to expose what he believes is wrongdoing faces accusations of his own.
You have no right to arrest Jullian Assange!
For more than a year, he's been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he sought refuge to avoid possible criminal charges. And today, WikiLeaks and Assange are standing shoulder to shoulder with perhaps the most damaging leaker of them all, Edward Snowden, the fugitive former government contractor who went public with top-secret information about some of the crown jewels of the intelligence community.
Some U.S. officials say, make no mistake, these leaks have serious consequences, that the terrorists are changing the way they communicate because of these disclosures. George?
Okay, Pierre, thanks. Let's talk now to Jullian Assange from the Ecuadorian Embassy in London, joined here in New York by Jesslyn Radak, a former whistleblower from the Justice Department who disclosed details of post-9/11 interrogation practices, now with the Government Accountability Project. Welcome to you both. And Mr. Assange, let me begin with you. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about where Edward Snowden is right now and where he's expected to go?
Thank you, George. I wish I could answer these questions of yours in more detail. The situation now with Edward Snowden is a very sensitive one. It's a matter of international diplomatic negotiations, so there's little that I can productively say about what is happening directly. But look, let's pull back a bit. Why is it that Mr. Snowden is not in the United States? He should feel that he should be afforded justice in the United States. But his situation is very similar to a situation that I face and that my staff face, where we have been sucked into a grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia. That's where the charges for Mr. Snowden came from, Alexandria, Virginia. Well, what do we know about that district? It's 6 kilometres from the centre of Washington, D.C. The jury pool is made up of the CIA, Pentagon, etc. In the legal community in the United States, it's known as the rocket docket because of the lack of scrutiny procedures have there. There's a 99% chance that if you're, sorry, a 99.97% chance that if you're a target of a grand jury, you'll be indicted, and a 99% chance that if you're indicted by a grand jury, you will be convicted. So this is not a situation, ignoring all the political rhetoric which we've seen, which has been terrible over the past 2 weeks, where Mr. Snowden can feel that he would be afforded justice.
But is there any country right now that will grant Mr. Snowden asylum?
Well, under UN conventions, Mr. Snowden has the right to apply to nearly every country for asylum. Of course, asylum decisions are always a mixture of the political and the legal. And I think there are several countries where it is politically possible for Mr. Snowden to receive asylum, and many countries, of course, where he's legally entitled to that kind of protection. No one is alleging that any of his acts are anything other than political, that he has acted in a manner to draw attention to a very serious problem in the United States, where without the will of Congress, without the will of the American population, we now have a state within a state. We have a transnational surveillance apparatus. Glenn Greenwald just last night spoke about how a new technology to be rolled out by the National Security Agency is going to attempt to intercept 1 billion mobile phone calls a day. No one signed up for this. Obama does not have a mandate for that.
With respect,
no one has a mandate
Mr. Assange,
for that.
many people have back to the United States if he would not be detained or imprisoned prior to trial, if he would not be subject to a gag order, if he would be tried in the venue of his choosing. Do you think it would make sense for Snowden to return under those circumstances?
I actually don't. I have represented people like Thomas Drake, who was an NSA whistleblower, who actually did go through every conceivable internal channel possible, including his boss, the Inspector General of his agency, the Defense Department Inspector General, and 2 congressional committees, and the U.S. turned around and prosecuted him, and did so for espionage, and threatened to tie him up for the rest of his life in jail. I think Snowden's outlook is bleak here, and instead of focusing on Snowden and shooting the messenger, we should really focus on the crimes of the NSA, because whatever laws Snowden may or may not have broken, they are infinitesimally small compared to the 2 major surveillance laws and the 4th Amendment of the Constitution that NSA has violated.
As the president has pointed out, were passed by the Congress or overseen by a court.
Well, both of those are incorrect. Congress has not been fully informed. Only
they have passed the laws. There is oversight. There is
okay, but there's
oversight.
A secret interpretation of Section 215 of the Patriot Act, which nobody knows except for the Intel Committee of Congress, and even they say that they think most Americans would be appalled by that. And to say that it's been approved by the courts is a misnomer, because it gives the impression that federal courts have approved this, when in reality it's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, which has rubber-stamped every single...
Which is a federal court.
No, it is a secret court set up at the Justice Department that has federal judges on it, but last year it approved 2,000 out of 2,000 applications. They hear only the government side, and they've rejected an application 1 time since 1978.
Let me bring this back to